Good morning or afternoon. My name is Shannon Prather, and I'm the Marketing Coordinator at GISinc. I'll be your moderator today. I'd like to thank you for joining us for today's webinar titled, How Can GISinc Support You? Your Guide to Support Block Optimization. In today's webinar, we'll discuss the benefits of having a support block with GISinc, how to optimize your support block if you already have one, and what some of our most commonly used support block requests cover. We'll also share ideas for some of our users, talk through the role of technical architects, and share how we've reshaped our business to help serve you better. During the webinar, we'll pause for a moment to ask 2 polling questions. We appreciate you taking a moment just to answer these questions as they'll help gain better insight into your organization's priorities. I'd like you to encourage to post questions throughout the webinar. We're going to be responding to all questions within a week via email. After we answer questions with closing statements, there'll be a brief survey. The survey is going to show up on the screen after we finish speaking, and we realize you'll want to get back to your business on hand, but please do not hit the close button until you've seen the survey questions appear on your screen. Your time to answer these short survey questions is greatly appreciated. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted online. You'll also receive a link to the recording via email along with those answered questions. To set the stage for why GISinc has been producing this webinar, let's take a quick look at who we are. GISinc has solved where problems geospatially for over 27 years. With over 160 professionals and one core purpose to create insight through location technology, GISinc prides itself on helping customers thrive using support blocks to provide education and expertise, upgrade assistance, optimize investments, jumpstart IoT and work smarter initiatives, and create an array of automations. Without further delay, I'm excited to welcome our presenters today. Corey Baker, Business Development Manager at GISinc. Corey operates in our Midwest region to understand challenges organizations are facing with moving forward and expanding location technology. He enjoys helping our customers leverage the most from their technology investment and feels that location technology GIS has been long undervalued throughout organizations. Currently, he lives in Indiana and has worked for GISinc for almost 4 years. Also, we have Laura Wilson, Technical Architect at GISinc. Laura, originally from Colorado, has lived in Raleigh, North Carolina for the last 12 years. She found GIS in college and has been working in it ever since. Laura's experience includes 6 years at Esri and 12 years as a GIS developer. She loves consulting in the role of technical architect because it focuses on customer engagement, designing GIS architectures, and improving workflows. And to get us started today, we're going to just take a quick poll of the audience. Our poll is, do you currently have a support block with GISinc? We'll give you guys just a few seconds to respond. All right, thank you for your participation. And we'll go ahead and launch the results. All right, looks like 46% of you do have a support block currently with GISinc, and about 54% do not yet. Perfect. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Corey.
Awesome. Thank you, Shannon. And thank you, everyone, today for joining us. Those are good stats. So we got a good mix of folks who are already using support blocks and who are not. So we thought we'd start this off with just a brief overview of what are GISinc support blocks. So first, access to support on demand. So literally our people are standing by ready if you have a support block, and you get a hold of them, text, email, phone call, and ready to engage in any location technology task that you have. There's a single point of contact associated with your support block. That's a TA, such as Laura Wilson, and she's going to be talking here in a minute. And that's really your single thread into GISinc, and this person is aligned to your success. You have, this is actually my favorite one, access to the entire GISinc army. So nothing in a support block is excluded, I guess, from our customers. So our technical folks are different makes and models in terms of technical expertise and prowess. and they are experts in different things. So depending on the task, we can assign the appropriate resource over here at GISinc. They're flexible and adaptable, and that's by intention. So say you are embarking on, say, a collector-based workflow, right? Not quite sure, say it's for sign inventory, not quite sure of all the inputs or what needs to get configured, to the nth degree yet, but this is a good way to kickstart that project, and we can remain flexible and adaptable as we go throughout. And another favorite, acceleration at your fingertips. So I mentioned getting stuff kickstarted. So this is a quick way to get different projects, whether it's app configurations, whether it's scripts, whether it's reporting if you're doing CityWorks, get things started and get it going. Also on this, you can see a little cloud over here to the right. So 75% repeat customers, 97% client satisfaction. So a vast majority of our business is our repeat customers. And obviously that's based on that 97% client satisfaction. It's something at GISinc we pride ourselves on. It really goes into a couple different mantras. So service excellence, but also being premier. We want to be the premier service provider to work for and with. So therefore, we get good people in here from our technical staff, and we retain them, and we also have great customers, and we deliver great results. So typical ways to use a support block. This is by no means all-encompassing. It's something I see generally as folks are kind of getting started. Laura's going to have some great examples of stuff we're doing all over the country. So if you're a current customer, you may see some stuff in there that you're doing, and that's an inspiration. But as far as like when people first get into it, it's ad hoc tasking, ongoing support. That's pretty straightforward. Give us a call. We'll knock stuff out. We'll align with you. Specific projects with specific tasks. So going back to that collector example, right? So that's a specific project, but there could be many specific projects that get peeled out as part of a support block. So location technology, reach back, and knowledge share, I'm going to kind of bundle those together. So if we think about something like ArcGIS Enterprise, you want to go to 10.6.1, right? You want to take yourself there. You want to do the upgrade, but you're sitting over here at 10.4, right? The architecture changed to 10.5. So there's a lot of questions that you have. We can help fill in those gaps along the way to make sure, A, you don't get slowed down, B, you don't make mistakes, and B, you get there faster and more successful. So this one here is what are some of our customers saying. So I peeled out a few. I'm not going to read every one. I'm really going to focus on that third quote down there and really that last sentence. It's good to know for the future that GISinc has such services available. And when I read that, it's been a few weeks back now, and it's kind of like what prompted me to want to do this webinar was we do so much, and you're about to see on support blocks, so many different tasks and activities. I'm like, how do we get this message out? You can do it at an individual level, but how do we let people know all the great things they can do on support blocks? So that's where I took that from. It's kind of guided us in here. So this is going to be the last part of me talking here for a minute, and really it's going to get into Laura here in a second in terms of all the great kind of thoughts she has and ideas and stuff that you're doing and kind of things kind of get you going. But as far as a management structure, there's really two roles. And I think Shannon earlier mentioned we kind of reshaped our business. So I'm going to cover the account manager or BDM, business development manager, such as myself. So we're committed to your long-term success. So in 2018, what we did, so if you've been with us for a while, 5-10 years, you may have noticed you got an account manager now. You probably always had one, right? But now we got this business development manager floating around too. But we're both focused on your success. The account manager is going to be there to focus on your long-term success working with GISinc. And some really key things is obviously 100% dedicated to that, but this structure is available regardless of size. So whether you have a small support block, you got a large support block, this structure is in place, but we're going to work hand in hand with your technical architect, which you're going to hear more about that role here in a hot second, and you to make sure that we put this on a pathway for success and able to move whatever your goals and objectives are. Obviously, they differ per organization, but move those goals down the field. So with that, I'm going to pass over to Laura, and please pay attention to this part because this is going to be the best part of the webinar, is her talking, and I'll join you here in a minute. So Laura, here you go.
All right, thanks, Corey. Way to set the stage there. Hopefully I don't disappoint. I am a technical architect, so what does that mean? I think my favorite part about this role is that it's really customer focused. I get to really sit down with our customers on support blocks, and they're so flexible that, we really have the opportunity to have some conversations about, what are your goals? Where are your pain points? What ideas do you have? I mean, even if we're coming in with a specific workflow, let's go back to that mobile workflow that Corey was talking about. There may be ideas that spin off of that as we talk, and the nice thing about a support block is that it's so flexible. We're not limited in scope, so we can carve off little tasks and estimate those and really work with you. So again, my role is to bring the right resources from our team to you. So after we're having those conversations, Corey called it the GIS Army. Internally, we call it our big brain. And it's one of my favorite things about working for this company. I've worked at lots of consulting companies where maybe I or my small team were the only resources. And at GISinc, I mean, really, if you wanted to do anything, I can find the person on our team probably with that experience, if it's Postgres or if it's Collector or Survey 123. So that's my job, is to find the resource that's going to best benefit your project, and really just coordinate and make sure you're getting the most value out of those hours that you're buying on a support block. So, and I can coordinate with Corey at any point, so I've always got backup as well. So if you want to go next, Corey, I think we're going to go ahead and jump into some hot topics. So Corey just said, hey, you talk about the things that you're seeing and what are the most exciting things or trends that we're seeing in the marketplace as on all these different support blocks. And it was really hard to pin down because people do so many different things. But I think we have some themes that I've seen kind of over the last year, and you can see them up there. And we're just going to dive into each one of these and talk about some of the trends. So go next, and we'll go ahead and start talking about one of the most, I think, beneficial things we see, or it might be like a key project that a customer will start with, will be some sort of optimization or automation. Why are things running slow? Why are my maps so slow? This data just doesn't seem to respond the way it used to. How can I make things faster? And we've seen that in GIS for years. Even though the platform's getting faster, there's still things you can do to optimize your data and your maps and your workflows. So sometimes we will just spend a couple hours on the phone or getting your server logs or looking at your MXDs and just coming up with recommendations for how can you make that faster. On the database side, sometimes we'll get on it with your DBA or your GIS person and say, where are your indexes? How often do you recreate those? Are you compressing? So there's definitely some key themes there for optimization on the data and maps and services. And that can often lead into, well, hey, I really wanted to tie this data set to that stuff in that external system over there. So parcels are a great example. Everybody has property information in one system or permits in one system and parcels somewhere else. So this screenshot we're looking at looks a little complicated, but really it's not, and it's just one of the tools we have in our toolbox. We're using for this client the data interoperability extension. So this is the FME workbench, and it's a little bit like Model Builder, but where you can say, I want to move data from A to B, and I want to translate it in between. So I want to extract it from one place, translate and load. That's that ETL. And we can help build those workflows. And maybe sometimes in Python, we might use data interop extension to help us with that, but it's an automation that maybe somebody runs nightly, weekly, monthly. So we see it a lot of times with bringing data together from external systems, again, permitting, property information, citizen requests, crime, so that it can truly live in GIS and be utilized to the best of serving it out for the public as more of a publication layer. So that's a little bit on automations. If you go next, I want to talk about mobile too. So this is where we're seeing a lot of trends where people are getting off of paper workflows, which is fantastic. Everything from trees and signs and trash, utilities are really popular. This one is actually, doing some stormwater management and tracking best practices. And I think the real question we see is, there's so many apps, which one do I use? What do I use when? Is Survey better? Is Collector better? And so having that initial conversation on a support block is great because we can examine your workflow and figure out, do you need to go offline? Do you need a spatial component? Survey might be better for those really complex, like if-thens, right? So if I pick a 5-year project, then maybe I need to show these fields and these verification dates. This example that I put up here, it actually turned out we needed both, or both applications together gave the client the best fit. And that was where it was fun to bring in the team and say, if you collected these 3 things in Collector and then we linked it over to Survey, we can do that and they can relate to each other and it can all be in one geodatabase, but we can get the best out of both applications and have a dashboard to see it all. So this was one of my favorite workflows that we've set up, a little more complicated, but definitely seeing a lot in the mobile automation space. So next. Okay, so then the other big one, and this is really almost every single client is going through an upgrade, planning an upgrade, has just done an upgrade. Esri's platform really changed at 10.5. A lot of folks might have had ArcGIS Server for years and maybe a web adapter, and they're doing a lot with their enterprise database. And at 10.5, there's a couple new components. We're not going to dive into all that today, but one of the things we like to do is walk the clients through, what are the benefits to going to this enterprise platform and adding Portal? What can Portal do for you? How do you integrate Active Directory? How can that impact your licensing is a big one. How can it help your organization have more of that single sign-on? What's the best to do in Portal versus ArcGIS Online? And it can be a combination of both. So having those conversations on a support block can help people plan for a migration or even just a simpler upgrade. What about 10.5 to 10.6? What's changing? And let our team help walk you through it in an efficient way. Can be some of the things that we would talk about. The data store is a really hot topic. Esri's got a great white paper out there, if you haven't seen it, on kind of benefits of what you would do in the data store versus the enterprise geodatabase. And data store is perfect. It's optimized for several things, and you may still do your versioned editing in your enterprise database. So being able to talk with people and figure out how to leverage these components. What are they? What are the best practices? And then if you go to the next slide, we might then dive into architecture, right? Okay, so you're convinced that you want to do this, or you think you might want to. What does that look like? And this is just an example architecture. Some of the first questions we have are just, what are your existing servers? Are you in cloud now? Would you consider that? Do you have virtual machines? How hard is it for you to get new machines? Some people are like, yeah, stand it up tomorrow. Others, it is a real challenge. They might not have an IT department. So just know that we can help on sizing and talking through different components. How do you grow the system over time? So I liked this one because it had Geo Event Server down there in blue. And that's something that we'll talk about in a minute, but folks are getting more interested in. How does it plug in? How does it talk to Portal? Do you have to do it right away? And you don't, you can plug it in later. So this was an example of something we might put together and talk through for a client. Again, every client's different and may have different architecture needs, but definitely helping you understand those newer configurations is important. Okay, so if you go next, we're going to talk about working smarter. So I think Geo IoT is a big term, or just IoT, the Internet of Things. There's sensors everywhere. One of the things we're really seeing in GIS, and this is honestly what I'm so excited about working on these projects, is everything really is coming together. And the map can be that hub for communicating situational awareness or what's going on. And it might be, what are the flood gauges doing? What work orders are coming in? Where are my snow plows and have they finished their routes? Tracking trash trucks, lots of different things happening, especially airports are doing a lot of neat things. So how does this data feed into GIS? How can it help you work smarter? So this was just an intro. And I think if you go next, I pulled an example of some flood sensor information. So this was, we just did this on a support block. There's a set of sensors out there, data coming in through an API from a third-party partner of ours called OneRain. And you can see on the left, there's some data XML looking stuff. And basically each sensor doesn't move, right? They're in the rivers or at the low water crossings, and they want to know, when is the road impassable? This is going to go into the 911 dispatch. We want alerts to go off. If it's getting close to flooding, we want alerts to go off. And you could see that this could be any sensor. It could be a sensor in a lift station or your SCADA system that you would want to color code and notify on. So this is really, we're seeing a lot more integration ideas in our projects. And what's really fun is to be able to use GeoEvent to make this happen. So the XML data on the left, GeoEvent can take in different feeds very easily. Out of the box, there's tons of connectors. We basically point it at a URL, pull this XML data down, and then categorize it so it can do some math, right? Am I near flooding? Am I at normal conditions? Am I high? And that gives us a field to color code on. So again, just bringing that sensor data into GIS, helping the dispatch center work smarter was the goal of this. And this was a little pilot project, but they're going to add hundreds of sensors and really start tracking this in real time. So if you go next, I think the other example of working smarter I wanted to touch on was Waze. I can't believe how many customers are starting to participate in the Waze community program. And if you haven't heard about it, we can send you some information. But basically, Waze wants communities to work with them, and basically they'll give you an API key into their data set, and you have the opportunity to push data up to them for your road closure. So it really becomes a partnership. So how does that look like? How does that work? Using GeoEvent Server, again, we'll see the green box would be our Waze data coming in. And then this little model builder type workflow is what you set up in GeoEvent. So you can set up your different filters or processes, calculations. You can map fields into different feature classes. You can set up alerts. So we've got just a quick little sample map on the right there saying like, oh, this was a weather hazard. But that information is coming right out of Waze in real time. The one on the bottom I really like because it shows how GeoEvent can auto aggregate for you. And so this was kind of an alert heat map. And again, all out of the box, configurable, and we're just really seeing cities start to take advantage of this program. So it's something that provides a lot of value and situational awareness across departments within a local government. So that's a little bit on working smarter. If you click next, one of my favorite things that we do for customers is really education. So even everything we already talked about, that's a lot of different things coming out, and just keeping up with everything is hard. Now it's IoT and Esri platform and hardware. How does a GIS department of one or two people really know how to do everything? And so that's where I think the support block serves the clients the best. Because it really gives you an efficient way of getting information. It could be anything from what is Insights? What's a Jupyter notebook? I heard the term, I haven't had time to look it up, and we could just say, well, let's talk about that for half an hour. And I'll get our Python guy on, and he can show you one and say, well, this is the benefit of doing it this way. We've done it a lot with vector tiles. That was kind of a hot topic this year. Why would I change my base map? What is the benefits of this? Oh, okay, well, it improves performance and you can do cartography you weren't able to do before. So a lot of times it might just be an introduction to a topic to help you understand it. And then it might be like, okay, well, how do I get started with that? I'm building a dashboard, but I don't really know how to set up that info summary widget, or I don't understand why I can't configure something this way. How do I use arcade expressions? This has come up a lot even in the last 2 weeks, surprisingly. So that would be where we would have a conversation on a support block. I'd be working with the customer and say, okay, let me get one of our guys or ladies who's just done that for somebody, and we'll get on a call and sort of like do some diagnostics and say, okay, this is what we would propose to do. And we'll talk with you and say, what do you think? Okay, and then we'll do an estimate. We'll say, well, let's say we think that's about 2 to 4 hours. And then you would give the go ahead to have us spend that time. So there's a lot of interaction. And again, as a TA, that's my role to guide, turning questions into actual tasks. So I put different ones in there. Best practices are certainly something that we are asked for a lot, particularly with the new enterprise environment. You know, surrounding the relational data store, optimization we talked a lot about. Portal, I think it's like having a brand new clean closet. You know, you get it stood up, and then what are those best practices for managing your users and your licenses and your content? Because the last thing you want to do is junk up your brand new environment. And so if you put a few key processes in place ahead of time, it will streamline all the content that goes in, and how you release things to groups for publishing and sharing can make a big impact. So again, just thinking about content management and best practices there can be really important, and we're seeing a lot of demand for that as well. So when we have these discussions, and I know some folks on the call have benefited from this. Oftentimes we will record the session. So we'll say, okay, we're going to show you how to convert licenses from AGeo to Portal. And I will record the session, and we will give you the video for you to go back and rewatch if you forget, especially if it's a task you do once every 6 months. Rather than spending a lot of time and hours to document it, we'll record the video where you're getting the knowledge transfer, and then you can have it for your reference. So that's my favorite. I hate to go back and listen to myself, but there can be a lot of value in those knowledge sharing. So this is something I think I do on every single support block, is some sort of knowledge share, knowledge transfer, and really it's client driven. So our goal really is to teach. And sometimes that knowledge is almost more beneficial than the services. We can convert that CAD data, but let's talk about how you're going to do it next time, and talk about that process. So next, Corey. Oh yeah, so this is one of my favorite things that I learned on a support block. When I came to GISinc, I did not know about the AGeo Assistant. And I remember being on a call where one of our solution engineers said, well, pull up the AGeo Assistant. And I said, what's that? And they showed us how to use it. So this is an Esri tool. It's a web-based tool where you can come in and you can look at what's in your web maps, and you can look at them in ArcGIS Online. You can look at the ones you've made in Portal. And so you kind of see, like I had a group there, the blue bar, and then I have maps in there. So I can click on a map, and then there's a menu at the top that says I want to. And you can just go look at the JSON that's behind your map, which is fascinating because you can find the item IDs, you can look at your visibility, you can see the URLs for your operational layers. One of the things that we do with this a lot is, let's say a person or an organization just stood up Portal, and they're ready to move content from AGeo down to Portal. This tool can help you do that. You can copy the maps down and then stand them up. You can repoint URLs by editing in here. Now, it's not something that you want to do lightly, but it is certainly one of the most useful tool sets, and one of my favorite things that I learned from our team on a support block. So just a good example. Go next, Corey, if you're there. I think, yes, I was going to say, we wanted to just do a quick poll and kind of see if any of these topics are interesting to folks. So Shannon, do you want to kick that off?
Yeah, absolutely. You should see the poll now on your screen. This is a select all that apply type question. So which of the following support block uses appeal most to you? I think Laura covered these all in detail. Automation and optimization, upgrade planning, work smarter in IoT, education and expertise. Maybe something we didn't mention here. Other. We'll go ahead and close that poll. Thank you so much for all that contributed. Let's take a look at the results. It's like 83% for automation optimization, upgrade planning, 50%, work smarter in IoT, 50%, education and expertise, 58%.
Okay. Well, I think this is really interesting because it's hopefully we hit the mark on some of these different topics. Again, just trying to group things into some themes. But I think if we go to the slides again, there's a really neat graphic that actually came out of ESRI, and it talks about kind of GIS patterns of use, and I think we've seen that change. Anyone who's been in the industry for more than 5 years, it reinvents itself all the time, and really those patterns of use are changing. So I'm hoping Corey can still find that slide. Maybe we just need a couple minutes, but so on the patterns of use, I mean, really, there we go. When you look at this, look how many different kinds of things you can be doing across one organization. And that's very broad. Maybe you're not doing all of them at one time, but we consider all of these potential to help guide customers as they navigate the Esri roadmap, right? This kind of shows the breadth of what Esri is doing. And maybe you're not doing monitoring or analytics now, you just want to learn about insights or you want to learn about server monitoring. It's a place you might go in the future. And so that's where I think, my job is to help determine where your needs fall and what you could be considering next. So we always want to think about how can we help you extend your program? How can we optimize what you're doing kind of across all of these categories? So hopefully we touched on some trends there. I'm going to hand it back to Corey and he can talk a little bit more about how support blocks work logistically. Oh, and our partners.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Laura. So I think that was fantastic. I think I even probably learned some stuff that we're doing, and I think the most important part about that is those are things we're currently doing with customers across the country using support blocks. Those aren't things we're dreaming up and say, oh, this is stuff you should do. It's stuff that's actually happening. So hopefully that, if you're currently using a support block, you kind of got some ideas, some other stuff you could be doing. If I know there's some folks on here that don't have one and maybe you're thinking about going and working with us on one, those are some things. Maybe, I was going to get into it for scripting, but oh, wow, we could do this whole work smarter thing. So I think that's fantastic. And I think this isn't going to be the only webinar we do in this whole series. So we put a partner slide in here, and I think it's important because we have a lot of partners. This isn't all of them. If you go to GISinc.com/partners, you'll see the full list there. Obviously, we've talked a lot about Esri today. We're platinum partners with Esri. A lot of work we do is on the configurations of the platform, integrations with the platform, knowledge transfer on the platform. If we move over to the right to CityWorks, you can think about, okay, we're also a platinum partner with them, but how do I do stuff with CityWorks on a support block? Well, you think, I could do some reporting, I could do some integrations, I could do some extra service requests, work order requests, right? I could do some TLL, I could do some extra permitting workflows, I could do some knowledge transfer on CityWorks. What's this next upgrade going to look like? What do I need to watch out for? As I'm moving through Panda Consulting, if you're not familiar with these guys, they're experts in the parcel fabric. So if you're managing, parcel data out there, that's an optimized workflow. They're awesome at it. We complement them from the web maps and apps that Esri puts out. And currently we work with a support block with that as well. Because sometimes folks don't really know, they know they want to go with the parcel fabric, really not that sure which configurations of the platform, like the maps and apps they want to put out, and what kind of minor to moderate customizations they want to do. Support block's perfect for that. V3 is our partners north of the border up there in Canada. So, they're a service provider, and we work with them and leverage our expertise as well, OSIsoft and the Pi system, and then SSP integration. So these guys are experts in gas and electric utilities, and as you may or may not know, some organizations have 3 utilities, right? We're experts in water. So we partner with these guys, work side by side, a lot of times in support blocks to help things get going. So if I move forward, this kind of going to be the wrap up. There's another one after this, but types of support blocks. So this is really, really straightforward. We offer two types: prepaid, pay as you go. Differentiators: prepaid, you get blocks hours, 30, 60, 90, 120, right? And if you do a 2-hour task, 2 hours goes off that block. It's really easy to figure out. You get access to all the resources. And the beauty of this one is, depending on who you're getting, it's no different. It's just hours, right? Pay as you go. Very, very similar, only different. There's a rate schedule included, because it's going to be a little different if you use, a senior geospatial dev versus a staff solutions engineer. So it's kind of consumption based in that way, but obviously the hours derive the consumption. Either way, you get access to everybody. You're going to have a TA on the project to help align and guide that and understand where you need to go, right, and how you're going to move the ball forward. But either way you go, you get all these things, and we just put these together so you have options, right? We don't want to pigeonhole you into one. Yeah, you got to go prepaid. And if your organization, precludes you from doing that, we get it, right? That's why we have a pay as you go. So I think that's going to conclude the day. I think Shannon's got some wrap-up items. If you have any questions for us, you can reach out to me, Corey Baker. There's my email there, or Laura. Now, if you already are working with a technical architect other than Laura, or an account manager, a business development manager other than myself, you can feel free to reach out to them. If you're not, or if you just want to reach out to me and I can connect you, I know all the folks I work with, so it's not a big deal. I want to thank you for your time today. We really appreciate it. We try to keep it as brief and informative as possible. I know you guys got a lot of stuff to do. But thank you very much. And Shannon, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Corey. I hope you all learned something new today. We hope to hear your feedback on the survey we'll be providing momentarily. There's just going to be a few questions that come up on the screen after we finish speaking. But just a reminder, within the next week, you will receive an email with the webinar recording link, as well as a list of answered questions. If you submitted any questions during this webinar, we'll attach a summary to that email. And if you have any questions you have not yet submitted, please feel free to do so. So again, please answer these 4 short survey questions that'll appear on the screen momentarily. Thank you again so much for joining us, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.